Hi, I'm George the Antique Nomad. Come with me as I wander the country in search of valuable vintage, amazing antiques, and cool collectibles. We'll buy, sell, and trade at antique malls, shops, and shows, estate sales, flea markets, thrift stores, anywhere people go to find really interesting things that just aren't made anymore. So come on, let's go. Hello everybody, I'm George the Antique Nomad, and I am happy to bring you my recap of last month's eBay sales. Now, I don't cover all of my eBay sales because I did sell some additional items beyond this, but these are the items that I put in my level 2 bonus video that goes out to members who are on the level 2 level of membership. And what that means is they get early access to this video. It is something that we then make available to everyone after the first folks have had a few days to have fun with it. And I'm very grateful to the members for letting me make this additional content available to everyone. We are going to be doing some other additional bonus videos, by the way, and they will be released to everybody eventually. But if you want early access to those, we have a new Patreon group. If you go to the Antique Nomad, or actually better still, just look in the links in the descriptions below here. And if you click the Patreon link, you can join for any amount starting at $1 per month. That's just a nice extra way to help support the channel. And in exchange for that, we're going to do early access to any other bonus videos that we do. And there'll be occasions where we have, we usually put out a couple bonus videos every month, and we just thought it would be nice to be able to reward the folks who've been kind enough to support us on Patreon with the early access there as well. Let's see, other housekeeping things before I get started on this. I do have a new Shorts channel as well. So it is the Antique Nomad Shorts. If you are interested in really brief content, I've had a few people say, you know, my life's really busy now. Things have come back. My business is really strong. I don't have time to watch a full-length video. This is a way that you can keep up on tips and hints and fun little insights on a particular item. It's kind of like eating potato chips. You watch one for a minute and pretty soon you've watched 10. But that's still more efficient than sitting and watch a whole video if that is not what your schedule allows. So the Antique Nomad Shorts, that's the place to go for that. Okay, with no further ado, let's talk about what sold on eBay last month. Last month was August. And in August, we usually expect our sales to be down. eBay is generally slower in August than almost any other month. And the reason for that, it makes a lot of sense, is that people are outdoors. The antique shows are the busiest, especially up north, that they are all year long. And so people are outdoors. They're going to antique shows and events. They're going to all the stuff that people do in the summer outside. And that is the reason that we expect that August will not be as busy on the computer, because people are not as involved and engaged with the computer at the late summer point. Having said that, I was really happy that, over 2/3 of the items that we put on sold. They sold for good prices. And there were interesting things that we could tell by looking at those sales. So let's do that together now. I'm going to hit the screen share here. And then we will flip over. Oh, okay. Let's go. Here we are. All right. So the first item that we had here was the Noisemaker clicker display, unused in the original packaging. And I just thought this had such great graphics. It says made in Japan right on it. This would be something from the late 1960s. And this one, the tin clickers, had the cowboy, the cowgirl, and then the chieftain all displayed. These were essentially the fidget spinners of their time. It was that thing that you could get for free at the shoe store or as an advertising piece. The Sunbeam bread, Miss Sunbeam was on a bunch of these. And some of them were figures. Some of them looked like little alligators. You know, they were fun to collect and really fun to annoy your parents and your siblings with. So they definitely had their place in time. It was fun to see an entire display that had never been used. And it went for $36, which was about where I thought it might go. And happy to see it go to a new home. Had to pack it pretty heavily in cardboard to get it there. Okay, this next one. We've had Oz books the past couple of months. I wanted to put one on that was a little scarcer and see how it would do. So I picked the Pirates of Oz with the dust jacket. It's a great graphic. Dust jackets always help with the price of books, even if they have a little bit of damage like this one does. This is a 1930s version of this book, and it ended up getting 8 bids and selling for a little over $45, which is right about where it should be these days. That is a pretty proper price for that title. So pretty happy about that. This one was printed in 1931, and some of the later ones are actually a little harder to find, especially ones printed during the Depression. This next piece, I was so pleased. A viewer gave me this to sell and to see how it went, because he said, I've been listening to you and you keep saying, well, Mary Hadley's gone out of business. Look for interesting pieces. And I thought this was interesting. And boy, I think he was right. You can see here, I'm going to click this so we can enlarge this for you, hopefully. There we go. At the bottom of the pot, it says empty. And on the bottom here, you're going to see the Mary Hadley signature. There we go, M.A. Hadley. So that's what you're looking for. Jug vases are definitely something that's very popular and kind of a tradition in Southern pottery making particularly. They've been doing this all the way back to the times of slavery when they would make jug vases. And there was one notable fellow who was known as Dave the Slave. And if you can find anything signed by him, whether regular crockery or a jug vase like this, you're looking at 5 figures. So I thought, well, the Mary Hadley is certainly interesting, and they are not making these anymore. And you can see all the hand painting. So we started her at $9.99, and she ended up going for $75 plus shipping, which I felt really good about, because it shows me that people are catching on, that this was a good pottery company that we're sorry to see gone, and that there are going to be collectors following up in the secondary market for it. And I will be splitting this amount. I'm actually writing my consigners their checks today, and this gentleman is going to get half of the money. It was kind of him to give it to me, but when it went for that much, I thought, oh, it's only fair that I share. So thank you very much for letting me have a share of this and doing this for you. All right, this piece is interesting as well. This is a frame tile. It's Dutch, and this is quite old. You can see losses in the corner. It was mounted in a presentation frame in the 1950s, but this tile is from a building in Holland that is said to have been a few hundred years old when it was removed from that building. It's referred to as a Delft blue tile, and it is Carturenhoefje in the Jordaan of Amsterdam, from what I understand. It has that information on the back here. And they mentioned that this attraction, this area, goes all the way back to the 16th century. So I thought that was a really cool piece. It got 2 bids. It sold for $79. That seems to be about where these older frame Dutch tiles in this condition seem to be selling. It was popular to frame these up in the time that this one was framed, so we do see them presented this way more often than you might imagine. This book did much better than I thought it would. It's a nice book. It's a great reading copy. It's called St. Nicholas. It's got this great cover from 1913 and some really great, well, the interior here, it was an ex libris from a public library, so you've got their stamp in there. And it's St. Nicholas, an illustrated magazine for young folks by Frederick Warne. Frederick Warne did a lot of the children's books, including the Beatrix Potter series. They were big into publishing that sort of thing. Here's Pumpkin Time, appropriately enough. Let's enlarge this so you can see it a little better. A lot of cute illustrations. Teresa Sturm Rotera apparently is the artist of this particular piece, and I don't know that artist, but it definitely looks like the type of juvenile art that we see popular around 1900 to 1910, which is when this book was done. I believe this book is actually 1913, it says on the cover. Across the Atlantic by wireless. This is right after Marconi with the wireless communication, so suddenly we can talk across the ocean. Pretty big deal there. And so this is talking all about how that works and showing amateur boys with wireless outfits, because of course this is the beginning of ham radio operation as well. And there's the binder. It did well. I was pleased. Usually this book sells for about half of this price, but this one really was in nice shape, and I think the timing was just right for it. I do think anything that is related to Christmas, this is a great time to start putting it online. We are at this point into almost October, and this is giving collectors time to set up their stuff for the holidays. So next piece here, the PM Craftsman Bookends. We actually had 2 sets of bookends that were lions. There was this one and a Jennings Brothers. I don't have the listing for the Jennings Brothers here, but it went for $100. And this set went for $45. And my intention was to put it together as some sort of a competition between the two to see which would fetch more. These were more modern. These are Philadelphia Craftsmen from the 1960s, and so you'll see that mark on the bottom of these. $45 is exactly a right price for this kind of bookend from this era, and the other ones, the Jennings Brothers, which were heavier, and Jennings Brothers is older and a more respected name, went for $100, which was about the right price on them as well. So I was pleased with that. In August, I figure we need to know what we need to get, and then anything above that is a bonus. And we got a few bonuses, including this set here. This is Occupied Japan, and I really like these flamingos. You can see the Occupied Japan mark here. TM, I don't know if that's Tilso, an earlier mark, or not. I was not able to find a specific reference to a TM mark, but the fact that they were Occupied Japan made them a little more unusual. I got these when I was in Colorado Springs, and I was with Yvonne Thrifty Rich and Jason of Junk Drunk Mantiques and Sarah of the Traveling Button, and they were showing me this one dealer whose booth they really liked because they had a lot of modernism, and I said, ooh, yes, I really do. And then I looked past them, and on the dealer's shelf were these flamingos. And they all said, oh, interesting, we wouldn't think to buy those because, you know, they were priced at a pretty good price for Colorado for flamingos. And those are not chips, by the way. That's just glare in the pictures. These were in perfect condition. I wouldn't have gotten them otherwise. But these pieces, because of being Occupied Japan and being a little more unusual, I thought this is going to sell to someone who's seen a lot of the California flamingos and is interested in having something that's different. And they certainly did sell, and they went for almost $91 and on 17 bids. So I was very happy with that result. It's a good, goes to show you, put things in a different place and they have a chance of selling, because definitely I have never seen a flamingo in the wild, other than ceramic ones, in Colorado Springs. Okay, this piece I thought was really neat. This is the Brown Derby Cookbook. And the first question I got from a potential bidder was, is this a first edition? And it is, and it said so when you opened the cover. First edition from 1949. It does have the dust jacket again. Great graphics on the dust jacket too. And it has it was the original issue, and that is the reason that it went for $102.50, which was a pleasant surprise. I have to say, I was not expecting it to go as high as that. Not because I didn't see the value in it, but because other first editions of this had been selling for, certainly under 3 digits. And so again, sometimes with eBay, you just have the right thing at the right moment. I just happened to have this when a bunch of people were interested. And you notice it got 31 bids. 31 bids is quite a lot. In fact, let's see if we can see the bid history here. I don't know if that'll still come up for you, but we'll take a look and see if that works. Hopefully you're seeing this like I am. So yes, we had, it took off and it just kept going. And particularly at the end of bidding, a couple people, actually 3 people really wanted it, and they really pushed the prices. And that's how eBay works on auctions sometimes. You know, a lot of people are afraid to use eBay auctions because they want that sure thing. They want to know what they're going to get, and I'm not taking less than this. But sometimes you get a positive on the upside just because you were in the right place at the right time. So it's the chance you take. And that's part of the reason I do this, is because I like showing you folks and learning myself what items seem to hit, what items seem to hit at particular times. Some things do better than you expect and some things don't. And that is what happens with auctions. So you take your chances, but sometimes they're worth taking. Now this I thought I would throw in because I didn't have a picture of that Jennings Lion bookend set. This is something that I sold online that is actually collectible, believe it or not. Baldwin Brass out of Reading, Pennsylvania, They were pretty well known, and these are from the 1980s, but this is a set of the Devon napkin rings, and they sold for $20. And I was happy with that because, and this is another good lesson, I had put those on eBay before a while ago at the same price, and they did not attract any attention at all. And I put them on actually closer to Thanksgiving when I figured people would be setting up holiday tables, and it didn't matter. So the moral of the story is don't give up. Sometimes especially if you're only selling online, sometimes people say, well, I tried it online and it didn't go, so it's burned and it's never going to sell, and now I just want to get rid of it. Well, sometimes you're just not in the right place at the right time. I know that's why a lot of people do eBay stores so that things can linger longer. But sometimes, again, with auctions, you try, if you don't get it, you take it off the market for a little while, and then you put it back out again. And that is the same in the real world too. If something, even if it's good, has been sitting in your mall space for 6 months, take it out, give it a rest, put something else in its place, and that good thing will look fresh and new when you put it back out again. I was very pleased to see that this sold for $59 on one bid. It sold Buy It Now. I was going to start it at $39, but somebody recognized that $59 is a pretty decent value for these now. I was surprised that they have gone up as much as they have. It is the wonderful HIT spy camera, and I'll show you this picture because it had everything. It had the film. It had the paperwork from the Bancroft Gift Center that sold it in the back of the comic book to this kid who bought it, Miss Eloise Weth something on Route 2 in Marietta, Ohio, which is where I bought it. I think it had spent its whole life there, and now it is on its way to a new owner and collector. And it was just great to see it in such good condition and with the original film. And film, as you see a film roll there that looks like it was shot and never developed. Yes, you can develop these old obsolete things. Even this little spy film footage can be developed at, there's places in Seattle and New York and Chicago and a lot of bigger cities that will sell you obsolete film for old cameras that you can shoot and will develop your obsolete film. So maybe the person who bought this will develop that and find some interesting pictures, probably of Miss Eloise spying on her siblings. Now, this was a later miniature camera, and this one was meant to be more of a professional outfit. In fact, I learned something interesting. A viewer of mine said that her husband used to sell these, I believe it was, if I remember the story right, back in the 1970s when they were new, 60s and 70s. This is a Minox Precision Ultra Miniature camera. And this is where, this would have been made in Germany, but this is where the camera makers are realizing that spy cameras are something that adults want to use because they also want to spy on people for various reasons, and this was a way to do it. The chain goes through the leather case and is part of the leather case, and the reason for that is, the viewer told me this too. There is a reason the chain is configured like this, and I think it has to do with the length from the chain to the case at its longest extreme. I can't remember if that gave you some sort of focal length so that you would know how far back you could be if you were shooting something. I think that was the case. There's a story to that anyway. So if you find one of these or are interested in that, you might Google search that and you'll get a better version of it than I just gave you there. But the chain is deliberate and it goes through the leather case deliberately. This one sold, again, Buy It Now, $59 first thing. These used to be very expensive when they were new. I know my grandmother got one, which was confiscated from her by the East German police, and she was deported from when she was on her way to Berlin on a trip when she was a photographer. So she was lucky that they only took the camera and didn't detain her. So like I said, grown-ups like these too. This piece is really cute, and a viewer I really enjoy who collects really neat things decided they wanted this piece. I thought it was interesting because it had this mark on the bottom, this mark being the Van Timps mark. It's 1930s spelter, early 30s in all likelihood. This is a censer or an incense burner. You put your incense inside the elephant and the smoke comes out of the top. I just thought it was really cute. It was something a little different. I got a collection of various metalwork in the shape of animals, and this was one of the more interesting pieces. It sold right away. Buy it now at $45, which to me is about the going rate for these. Now we're getting into some things that didn't sell. I sold 13 items out of, I think I sold 14 out of 20 that were listed. And then I've sold some additional items as well. But here's the ones that didn't go, and we'll talk about why. And then there's a couple at the end that did sell. We'll get back to those too. Okay, so this one, the Stein. This St. Louis World's Fair. And you can see here that it's a very cute piece, and they are having a bacchanal. I was not sure how to take the right picture to really get this across, and I think that that actually hurt the listing. Let's see if we can get to the first picture. Here we go. I think somehow, even though I thought my picture looked good, on second glance, I'm noticing it's a little dark. It's a little grainy. It may not have shown the softness and really delicate nature of the painting on this piece, and that may have had something to do with the fact that it didn't sell. Also, the truth is that these smaller Steins, these quarter liter, if they are not marked Metlock or Villery and Bach, and you can see they have a bunch of marks on here, but not that mark. And that really does seem to keep the prices of Steins down these days. Steins were super expensive and popular to collect when I first got in the business. And a lot of that generation who had that interest, those collections are in homes. They're not finding the more interesting ones that often now. And so they're holding out for the best. And a new generation of collectors isn't really seeing those old collections yet, so it hasn't stimulated more interest. I think that will change. When? Well, it's just a matter of time. Antiques and vintage have their seasons and their ups and downs and fads just like anything else. So as cute as this is, I think it will sell somewhere. This piece didn't sell at the eBay listing, but it sold immediately when I took it to the Springfield Antique Show. This is Fratelli Toso. It's their version of overshot glass, which is where they would spray glass frit, textured glass on top of a molten but cooling piece to give it extra texture and color. There's the label, Murano, made in Italy. Fratelli Toso's a really good maker. I think the colors are great. The person who bought it was thrilled to buy it, and actually they paid the price I had it on at the starting bid. And so I was satisfied with that. These pieces oftentimes are overlooked. I think a lot of Murano people haven't really caught on to overshot yet. I think they will. It's better known amongst Victorian glass collectors. So I think the modernists, certainly the one that I sold this piece to, was very excited about it. And I think that you're going to see more interest in these as time goes on. And it's a good thing to know as far as the maker, because a lot of people are not aware that this was actually by a pretty good Italian Murano glass studio. This piece also sold afterwards. I did not sell this on the eBay listing, but I ended up selling it for the asking price on a live sale. To a very serious collector of the hanging hearts. This was an original one from the 1970s. And so if you notice, it has just the Fenton logo very faintly in the bottom and does not have a number underneath it because it is 1970s. It's a neat piece. I was excited that the person who got it because she, along with 2 or 3 other people, are very serious collectors of hanging hearts. And I just had a feeling it was meant for her. So I'm glad that she found it in the live sale. And I guess it was just meant not to sell on eBay and be available for her. And again, this is why I sell in a lot of different locations. I know a lot of folks out there are trying to just do online. And the good thing is there's lots of different platforms, so you can move things between platforms just like I move things between online and the real world. And that is definitely what I suggest. If you are selling on multiple platforms and you have an item that you say, gee, that's really good, I don't know why it's not moving on there, put it on another platform and take it off of the platform it's on. That one's kind of controversial. A lot of people don't like to do that because, oh, it's such a hassle to list. I'd rather pay the 30 cents and just have it roll over and stay in my store. It's true. But sometimes if you want to sell something that's unusual and special, if it's sat there in a store and no one's grabbed it, taking it off the market and having it reappear later gives the impression that, oh yes, this is something we don't see all the time. If it's sitting in your store 365 days a year, even if it's really scarce, if no one buys it, it looks stale. Oh, I could always go get that. So there's a little psychology to all of this. Next piece here, this will sell when I take it back to Seattle where it belongs. I gave it a chance to see if I might sell it just because I thought it was fun, and I enjoyed telling the story about the other World's Fair in Seattle. Most people are familiar with the Space Needle and the 1962 World's Fair. They are not necessarily familiar with the fact that the AYP, or Alaska Yukon Pacific Exposition, was held in Seattle in 1909. And it was a major event. The three graces, as you see on the logo there in the middle, were the hallmark of the fair. And you notice at the top it says erroneously Washington State University, which is on the other side of the state. This is actually the University of Washington. That was their original building at their new campus in 1870. And in 1909, they had this giant undeveloped campus, and they knew they wanted to expand into a major college. So they agreed to let the World's Fair be held there. The Olmsted brothers came and built all of the beautiful ponds and things, all to allow when you left the buildings to have a wonderful view of Mount Rainier over this lovely fountain. And almost all the buildings were temporary. There's only one that was left. But the buildings, when they were torn down, were replaced by college buildings that are also beautiful. And that Olmsted landscaping down the middle has just turned it into one of the most beautiful college campuses in the country. In fact, when they did the Preppy Handbook back in the early 80s, it was voted the most attractive college campus. Okay, we tried a couple of different sports-related things, and I like to put them on eBay because I realize that my YouTube audience is more female, and that I may not reach them with this category of item. But I was hoping that maybe I would reach someone else, especially because we're getting near the end of baseball season. However, the Yankees didn't have a great year this year. And the Green Bay Packers are just starting their season. So we did not have luck on either of these. I deal in sports cards on eBay and the store regularly, and when you let them just sit and people come to get them, they usually sell pretty decently. You know, generally I sell $100 or $200 worth a month that way. I am noticing that the better and more expensive cards seem like they're actually slower, which makes me think that we're getting a lot of new collectors to cards, which is great, but that they haven't ramped up to this. These sell well for me in my real world locations, and that's where they'll go. So there's a place for everything. And this I just thought was really cool because I like the graphics and I like the box, and it reminded me of Leroy Neiman's sports illustrations, but it did not sell either. And that's a little surprising to me because I was only asking $20 starting, and these have sold consistently for more than that. So again, just you get the right thing at the wrong time. Now it's officially football season and people are really ramping up into it. I will probably put this back in my real world place, or I may actually make it a fixed price listing in my eBay store and wait for someone to grab it. The last two items here are things that did sell, the ones I hadn't covered. Here's this one. This one was the anti-Rush Limbaugh protest t-shirt. It went for $9.99, the opening bid. I didn't really expect it to go for a lot of money. I just thought it was interesting. I like selling political items, and this has a connection to that. And so I was just curious to see how it would do, and it did about what it would have done anywhere. And then this one I thought was really interesting, and this is ready for me to deliver to its customer, which is great because they didn't have to pay to have it shipped. This turned out to be a more interesting piece than I thought. I had another viewer send me a picture of something that they had that was commercially made that had a similarly painted but different elephant, and then a circus wagon behind that was commercially made and had lithoprint with paper on, but also had a giraffe and a lion. So the big question is, did they make that at a previous time? Because the person that I got this from, who's in his 90s, swears that he remembers it belonging to him as a little boy and his father having made it, and it is clearly handmade. So the question is, did Dad copy another piece that he saw elsewhere, or did Dad have access to some sort of a plan book where you made things that later was copied by a small toy company and put into production? Really hard to say. Even the painting on the elephant was similar, so I have to believe that there is an origin story there somewhere. I don't know exactly what it is, but when I find out, I will definitely let the buyer know, because I am curious, and they definitely share my curiosity for the origin of these kinds of things. So let's see here. We'll get back to the main camera here, and this was a lot of fun. I really enjoy sharing with you the experiments and the items and what happens when you're selling online in an auction format. I really appreciate, again, the Level 2 members for your support that makes these extra videos happen. I'm glad that we get to share this with everybody. For those of you who are Level 2 members, look in the community tab, because there will be a notification about the next early access video for you, which will be coming out very, very soon. And like I say, for those of you who are interested in early access to these videos, that's through Level 2 memberships here. If you want early access to other bonus videos, do check out my Patreon, and you can get the links to all this stuff in the description of the video below. Thanks for now, and I look forward to bringing you another 20 interesting items very soon, and we'll see how they do online. Take care. Thanks for joining me again in the fun and fascinating antique community, here where online meets the real world. Please click the subscribe button below, click the bell to be notified when new videos upload, leave a comment below, and hit thumbs up to like this video. Links to our online social media and our items for sale are in the description. This is George at the Antique Nomad. Bye for now.